What's up friends, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. Today I want to make a point, okay? I'm gonna share here a reference photo. And what I want to do is actually show you how even when the photo has specific colors, you can really go all out with the colors selection and just change some stuff to make it more interesting. For example, this reference photo is beautiful, but all of the green is just green, and that's because photos lie. If you would be there in real life, you would see some yellow flowers maybe, or some red in the trees, and the image tends to flatten it all into one boring green. This is why I think plein air or actually on location painting is much better. But even if you are working from a picture, you still have the artistic freedom to change stuff around, and this is exactly what we're gonna do with this painting, okay? So what we're gonna do is choose our own colors, turn the green into reds and blues and yellows, and make it just beautiful. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so first I'd just like to apologize. I do not have the same setup as the last painting video, and I promise to take care of that in the next one. So you can see my palette, but I will make sure to just mention everything I'm using. So for the sky, I mixed some French Ultramarine, and I added some burnt sienna to it, just a little bit, to mute it down a little and to make it a little darker, okay? And this one is, now what you see is real time, as I understand it's just better. Just started with putting a little bit of a wash and adding some water to it because it was a little too dark. I'm not worried too much about creating interest in the sky because there's enough details in the ground, the land, the houses and everything, but I'm just trying to get a nice wash in there. I will add some small details to the sky to make sure it's interesting in some way, but due to the granulation of the French Ultramarine, especially when mixed with the burnt sienna, what we get here is still a lovely texture. You don't need to do too much. And if you add the texture of the moleskin to it, then even better, which is what I'm using for this one, the moleskin. Now I'm just adding a bit, dashes of French Ultramarine, just stronger ones, to create that interest in the sky. I carefully painted around the houses just to make sure I don't touch the roofs. Some of them will be darker than the sky, but I kind of wanted to preserve them for highlights later on, okay? Now, I talked a bit about the process of painting, and with this kind of landscapes I already have their sort of blueprint down. So what I usually do is I start with the sky, and then there's usually a layer in the background of the mountains or something like this, which is exactly what I'm mixing color for now. So again, French Ultramarine and burnt sienna, the exact same mixture for the sky, but I make sure to make it darker and let the burnt sienna be a little more dominant, just to make sure that it is separate enough from the sky. Okay, you can see the burnt sienna catches a much has a stronger role in this mixture, and I will try and get it darker and darker slowly but surely. When you're not worried about completing a wash fast or doing wet and wet, really take your time with the mixing, because the more you mix, the more you can make sure you get an accurate result. And sometimes it just comes down to actually putting a bit of the paint on paper, like what I did here, and seeing if it's strong enough or not, or if it's too light, too dark. So right now it's pretty much the value I wanted, and it looks like also the color I wanted. It's really subtle, but the burnt sienna is a little more significant in this mix. So what I'm doing now is just continuing to negative paint basically around the houses. I'm not too worried about the horizon line, because you will see how it comes together nicely when we add actually the grass. Now again, my goal here is to actually show you how you can take that very boring green grass, and if I just do it with like Sap Green, or even if I try to mix that correct color you see on the bottom left reference image, it will just not come out right. It will be boring, there won't be any sense of depth, any sense of distance, all of the aerial perspective, which is exactly what I'm trying to get here. Now the thing is, you will see throughout this painting I make quite a few mistakes with areas that I do want to leave as a highlight, and I accidentally paint over them, so it's perfectly okay to dab the paint with a paper towel or something like this. Just make sure not to dab twice with the same place, because then you may take the paint you just dabbed off and put it on somewhere else. Really dangerous. Happened to me a few times, but I very quickly learned to stop doing it that way. Now, when it comes to doing these kinds of washes that are very negative painting and they rely on your brush technique, it's really just a lot of practice. And just like the video I talk about my practice routine, negative painting should be a part of it, or brush, or maybe brush stroke technique. It is things that are important, because I did notice that, you know, many times I praise values and an accurate drawing. The thing is, what carries the drawing in an accurate manner into a painting is your brush techniques. Also, again, Stan Miller talks about it a lot, like get your drawing right, get your values right. But the application of getting your drawing to stay accurate as a painting is your brush techniques. And so you want to get to know your specific brush, and also just in general how to do it. And I will do a video on brushstroke techniques, because it's really interesting, just the whole topic, because it's really important to also familiarize yourself with your own brush, but just in general know what to do and how to create the lines you want. So now I'm getting onto the grass. Now, for the very distant area, what I use is a mix of sap green, some French ultramarine, and a teeny tiny bit of burnt sienna. So you see these colors sort of repeat themselves throughout the painting. Now I'm trying to get it mute and dead and not a very vibrant green, because I want to create that aerial perspective that, if you remember, in the last painting I felt was kind of lacking, okay? And so what I'm doing is just creating a variety that starts with some muted, a little cooler colors, a little grayer, and slowly I'm coming to add a bit more of interest to it. I will share, right now I just mixed a bit of a new Gamboge into the Sap Green, just to make it a little more happy. I will share another painting process, I hope in the next week or so, in the following week or so, that shows how you can take, again, green and turn it into something very interesting and very varied, okay? Because this is what we're doing here. We're trying to get some variety. On the right you see a purer mix of sap green, and I'm just alternating between sap green, new Gamboge, some French ultramarine, just to get that interest. Now here we're coming more towards the foreground, so I want to make it a little happier. So what I mixed here is some new Gamboge again, and I added a bit of Pyrrole Scarlet to it. Sorry, not Pyrrole Scarlet, my bad, Perylene Red, okay? My bad, yeah. Perylene Red and some new Gamboge, and here on the bottom I'm letting the new Gamboge be more dominant and the Perylene Red be more dominant. Now this is the initial wash, and as you see in many videos, first you lay down this wash that just covers everything, many times. Sometimes you don't cover everything, but in this instance, yes. And I'm just trying to get some variety. A lot of it will go away, but for now I just want to get that initial wash to be varied, and then the second layer will add some more details. So now onto the roofs. The mixture here is significantly darker, and I unfortunately don't have a smaller brush here, and I should probably go get one, because I was quite struggling with the details on this one. Or alternatively, by the way, just paint larger, which I will do with my new moleskin. So I'm just trying to get the shape of the roofs to resemble something that's very straight lines, architectural details, just to make it look like buildings. And I did use too dark of a mixture, which I will correct in a moment. Now, as you can see, there's a tree. There's a pencil sketch of a tree just in front of the building, so I'm not too worried with the center of the building. I do try to paint it to make sure it kind of works well in my eye. But I'm not too worried about the center area of the building. Now, if the tree would have been lighter than the building, I would have to negative paint around it. But because I know the tree is even darker than the building, I can afford to cover that area up. Okay. Now I'm just indicating the trunk of the tree. I don't know why. It just felt correct, even though I still haven't painted the tree itself. Now I did use too dark of a mixture, and I didn't preserve some highlights on one of the roofs that I wanted. So what I will do as soon as I finish this wash is kind of dab away some of it, again like you've seen, and I think this will be the last dabbing action I do.
Here you can see like really not such a good result, but once I cover it and just negative paint around the roof I want, which you see just this moment, it will be good. So the light basically comes from the right, and you can see this also in the sketch where I drew the chimneys. You can see that there is a cast shadow on the roof in several places. There are two small chimneys on the structure on the right, one on the structure on the left. And all the roofs that turn more towards the right are going to be lighter, and all the parts of the building, roof, walls, whatever it is that turns forward towards us or to the left are going to be darker. And you will see this in the next few washes. Now, remember I talked a bit about when something looks detached, it means the value isn't dark enough. So this building I've been painting just now, just this second, looks detached. And the reason why is that the value is still too light, which is okay. It's all a part of the plan. I left it like this because I will add the darker values later on. And it's really important, this is the main reason why it's so important not to judge your painting just based on what it looks like now, because it looks nothing like the way it will look like when it's over, when it's all said and done, when you add the darker areas, okay? You will notice that this building I'm painting right now, on the rightmost, has a very interesting thing going on with the roof. The right side of the roof sort of turns towards us to the left, and the left side turns towards the right. So you will see some difference in values there. Anyway, back to the ground and the grass and the fields. So I'm going over it with another wash. This time I'm using Sap Green and French Ultramarine only. No burnt sienna in this mixture. At least not as much as in the previous one, and I'm trying to get that same variety of values, just a second layer, and darkness comes from layers. And if you look at the reference image, it can be a bit confusing, but the grass is much darker than the sky. It looks shiny and green and vibrant, but it's actually darker. If you take this picture and turn it into black and white, you will see this. So the ground should be much darker than the sky. Right now it's not, but when I add this wash that I'm working on right now, it is. So this one is Sap Green, pure Sap Green, less French Ultramarine, no burnt sienna. And here I do something interesting. So I just decided to take some burnt sienna, more pure, and just add that at the bottom to warm it up a little. Closer things tend to look warmer. And now I'm coming in with pure new Gamboge and adding on top of that. And it can be quite a challenge to get an even wash, again, even pure new Gamboge. It can be a challenge to get an even wash like that because you keep changing the color. So you will see I messed up in some places here and I didn't get an even wash. But look how much it's more interesting than the picture on the left in terms of the grass. I'm now adding a bit of the Perylene Red to the mixture just to make some small details, some hints of grass blades, something like this. Later on, I'll come back with darker values and add some more to it. Now our focus is gonna be again with the building. Okay, so all of the buildings, it's time to add the darker highlights, which in fact will be almost the darkest, you will see. So already when you just place that small shadow, it just looks better. You know, you can feel the sun already. And under the roof, there's a strong shadow. There's usually strong shadows under roofs. I'm gonna get some of the windows in there just by dotting them in, stippling them. You don't really need to create squares or anything because it's so in the distance that it's just irrelevant. By the way, something I want to start doing again is going more up close. I feel like I've sort of went into the direction of really landscapes from far away, and I do miss getting more details in, so I'll probably try and go back to that, which is a bit challenging for me actually. So now I'm trying to figure out where the shadows are and where I should add more shadows, and it's not always simple, but you kind of need to look at the shapes of the image or the view and just paint the shapes. So what I saw is there's a strong shadowy shape on the front side of this building, as I mentioned, and with the highlight of the roof it really comes through as the shape of the structure, and especially when I'm gonna add some shadows under that roof as well, as you will see I think in a few moments. So just getting in all those shadows, this is what creates the shapes of what we look at. The only thing I will darken later on is I will add very darker shadows again just under the roof, and you will see how it'll make it pop. But for now, this wash we're just focusing on the larger, darker shapes. Okay. So yeah, just getting in that front sides of the building, and you will see how I'm gonna paint around that roof of the lower building, and it'll just give it a beautiful shape. That's really fun to, I was really feeling this painting. I was really into it, into the process. Now I'm adding a bit of a cast shadow on the floor just to anchor the structure to the ground. I can't say I did a really good job with it, but I think at least it makes it feel more like it belongs in the scene. And look how it looks much less detached now, with the shadow at the bottom, with the darker values. And remember, don't remember, just there is another tree here at the front as well. So I'm kind of painting around it, but it will come and be darker. And I could paint on it, but I just didn't feel like it, honestly. Again, the cast shadow of the chimney, very important to convey the direction of the light and just the whole sense of this painting. Because it's really responsible for so much. It's all light. It's all we're doing is just capturing light and shadow, basically. So the left side of this roof, as I mentioned, will stay significantly light because it turns a bit more to the right. But the right side, which I'm painting right now, turns a bit away from the sun. And you can just see this in the reference. It's all about observing. It's all about observing, trying to see these shapes. A really cool exercise can be just to paint shapes without any regard to the actual object. Easier said than done. It's a challenging exercise, I think, but definitely worth it. And I will also probably do a video about that. I think it's important to kind of work on that skill as well. And you can feel how you just kind of understand the structure of the roof now better, You can just see it. Now I actually regretted doing it this way for the leftmost building, so I'm darkening all the bottom area. Just drank some water, and then I'll finally come back with a stronger highlight in a few moments. Getting in the trees. Now, the trees actually use a very similar mixture to the buildings and all the rest of the things. The one difference is that I just warmed it up using the Perylene Red. So it's like Sap Green, a little bit of French Ultramarine, and Perylene Red. And you'll notice how it really warms the trees up, which I like. I love it. I love the color that I got here, and because I'm using a relatively simple palette of like 5 maybe colors, something like that, it really helps to keep the painting together and not to look too messy or too unclear, so that's something important as well, especially in the beginning, to use a limited palette. I will publish soon a video on the current palette I'm using, not the Sennelier one, but the other one, because it's very interesting. It has a mix of Van Gogh and Daniel Smith, and I just want to show you what I work with at the moment. So now adding again some more trees in the background, now a little closer, and in this example the trees will help to better define the shape of the building. Because the trees are significantly darker than the roofs, and you paint the trees around the roofs, it makes the roofs pop forward, and you kind of understand, or the structures pop forward, and you better understand their shape. I'm trying to stuff in so many details into a relatively small space. Now, it's a small moleskin, unlike the new one I got, so this is part of why I'm struggling with the details, and it has a very loose look to it, because honestly I couldn't get a better look. So hopefully now I think I will actually force myself for the next month or so to just work larger, because I feel like I've been focusing so much on smaller, sort of thumbnail-ish paintings, and I feel like I'm kind of missing out on working on my skills for actual details and very accurate pencil drawings, very detailed. So I do want to go back to that and really do that more. You can see here especially the negative painting around the roof will help show its shape. Hopefully you can really feel it, because the tree is significantly darker than the roof that's facing towards the sun. So yeah, And again, for these trees that are at the back, I just alternate. I reduce the red in them and I just add more green and blue. Okay, so it's always a play of cool and warm. I just up the volume on the cool colors for the more background ones. There are some trees in the front, like in the almost in the very center, that I used a cool mixture, even though it's pretty close, and that's okay. It's just for variety, you know, to just create some interest. Again, some trees on the right, and the thing is, if now you think you can sort of understand the shapes of the buildings, wait until I add the even darker layer of the shadows under the roofs, just under the roofs, and you'll see how it really brings it more to life, even more to life. I accidentally skipped a small part, but I just better hinted at the cast shadow. Sorry about that. Now the foreground still felt a little empty to me, so I couldn't resist adding a bit of darker values to it. It could have ruined everything. I'm aware of that. It's something that it's a risk. I definitely took a risk with it. I could just flip it and flip the painting and just add a darker value more evenly to the bottom part, just to do it from bottom to top. So I would flip it, but I don't know. I just decided to take that risk. And I'm using the same for the grass as well as I'm doing for that sort of hint of a road, and there are a few also power lines, so I'm just sort of trying to get a hint of them. As for the mixture, again, it's a bit of Perylene Red, a bit of Sap Green, and that's mostly it. Maybe just a touch of new Gamboge. And it's the same one for these power lines, for everything. And it can be confusing, the color, the specific color I'm using, because it's affected by the layer under it, as it's a transparent, sorry, I'm stuttering, it's a transparent medium, so the under layer comes through, but that's a part of the beauty. So now I sort of got myself in a tough spot, because I'm putting in those grass blades, and I like, where does it end? Do I just continue doing it until the bottom? So I decided to warm them up even more, to add a little bit more red to the mixture, as you'll soon see, and do it until the bottom, and then just cover it with a wash, because I really didn't know what I'm doing with that. I just wanted to add some kind of details to the foreground. You know, now I'm gonna warm it up a bit, add some red to that mixture, and you will really see the difference. So yeah, I don't know if it was the best decision I could make. Maybe it was smarter to splash some water onto the previous layers and thus like get the more hint of a grass. Like Joseph's book, which is someone I love the way he approaches grass. I have no idea how he does it. It's like magic. Honestly, it's like magic. And you just get this beautiful impression of grass. I will try to work on that a little more, on that skill, because I love these kind of natural landscapes. Now it's funny, because if you look at the reference, it's so loosely followed, it doesn't even look like it, you know, but still it's cool to see that you can just do whatever you want with it. Here comes the best part, in my opinion. It's the shadows under the roofs that are gonna match the strong shadows on the roofs of the chimneys, and this will really sort of finalize the look and the shapes of the buildings. So I'm trying to figure out where to put these shadows in, mostly just under where the roof is. So you'll see here, this is a great example for that. Now, because light comes from the right, the shadow on the right side is a little thicker, just because it's exposed more to, this side is less exposed to light, so there's more shadow. Same thing on this taller building at the back. And it's kind of, you have to sense it, you know. I'm starting with just the idea of shading under the roof, but if I feel like I need to make the shadow a larger area, or maybe the trees influence the shadows, you kind of need to feel it and go with it. Now the structure on the right is incomplete, because the shape of the roof is still not 100% clear, but now that I add the very dark area under it, it just makes the roof pop more, and you can sort of understand, or better understand, its shape and why it's actually divided into the lighter and darker areas, depending on where it faces, okay? And really now I just felt like this shape of the roof could use some more definition, so I'm adding some trees in the background as well. and it's really nearly done. Just a touch of darker shadows on some of the foliage, some of the trees, and just to make it a little more, because it should be darker. Like, trees are deceptively dark when you see them outside. I think I just talked about this already in another video, but trees are really deceptively complex and much darker than they appear sometimes at first glance. So anyway, yeah, this is like really close to finish, and I think we're done and we can wrap up this painting.
Okay, friends, we are nearing the point of no return with this one, so hopefully it passes on the message that I wanted, and you can really see how you have a lot of freedom with the colors you choose to use. And yeah, I really don't want to overwork it, and I feel like I get to the point of overworking it just a bit and ruining it. I won't say it turned out exactly like I wanted, but the values are good. The overall, I think actually what needs more work here is the brush technique, like the actual strokes and accuracy. But this is it. Overall, really happy with this. I hope you learned something new from this painting, and I will see you again tomorrow.